So the particulars of the patient, the main patient name XY is a 52-year-old male who is a Hindu by religion. His occupation is a driver from Mangoldai, Assam. Is belong to a low middle class family. His chief complaint is right-sided upper abdominal pain for 4 years and right-sided abdominal mass for 3 months. So in his present illness, he in a right of the abdomen for past 4 years, which is recurrent and multiple onset, and the onset is sudden, colicky in nature, and severe in intensity. It is associated with nausea and non-radiating, but it is aggravated by fatty meal and relieved by medications. But for last 3 months, the pain is dull aching and continuous, and is pertained to the right upper abdomen. So the patient also complains of abdominal mass in right upper quadrant.
Hang on. Your sudden onset colicky pain, how frequently does he get the pain? What's the frequency? Because it's been going on for 4 years. Every few weeks, every few days, every few months. Because you said onset is sudden.
Yes, sir.
Does he get his... was he hospitalized for this condition? When he had severe pain, was he hospitalized?
Yes, sir. He hospitalized twice before.
Twice before he was hospitalized. What advice was given?
Sir, it's conservative treatment only he took.
It was not advised. Conservative treatment recovered. Okay, right.
Yes, sir.
Now,
yes, sir.
Radiation, where do you expect radiation to occur, if at all?
Sir, if sometimes he radiates to the right shoulder.
Shoulder. Anywhere else? Shoulder. Anywhere else you ask for, because these are leading questions. You have to ask the patient. You may not give the answer straight away. Other than shoulder.
Yes, sir. Apart from shoulder. Okay, sir. Apart from shoulder, I asked them whether the pain is radiated to the
radiation other than the shoulder, Baba. This patient has pain occupying the right upper quadrant of the abdomen, and therefore one of the sites you ask for radiation is surely the shoulder. Agreed. Is there any other region you would like to ask for specifically? Because these are leading questions you have to ask the patient. He may not realize the significance.
Yes, sir.
Interscapular region. Please remember. Also ask for radiation to the interscapular region. Okay, right. How many admissions he had in the hospital during the last 4 years?
Sir, 2 times he was admitted, sir.
Twice. How long he was in the hospital?
So he was in about 4 days, 5 days only.
Are these worthwhile mentioning in history or not important? Or you're coming to it later?
Sir, I did not mention clearly, sir, but I explained that he took a previous treatment.
Remember one thing, young man, whatever is written in the case sheet is accepted. Whatever is not written in the case sheet, he is trying to answer questions after you think about the answer, after the examiner asks you a question. So these things, once you mention the case sheet, is solid evidence that you asked this question. Otherwise, we are not going to go back to the patient and ask, has this question been asked? We believe you. But it's safer for you to write in the case sheet. Okay? Right, go on.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Sir, then the patient also complained of the abdominal mass in the...
No, I'm not finished the pain, Baba. Does he take medication only when he has pain, or was he asked to take the medication on a continuous, regular basis?
Sir, on and off when the pain is there, he took the medications.
Okay, right. Now, one question. Anyhow, doesn't matter. It's both while asking the question. Somebody has upper quadrant abdominal pain. Some investigation been done, and they've been asked to take tablets for several weeks. What's the first condition that comes to your mind? This man was admitted. Obviously, once he's admitted, somebody does an ultrasound, right? Agreed?
Yes, sir.
Ultrasound would have been done, no? Somebody comes with upper abdominal pain, right? So surely they will do an ultrasound.
Yes, sir.
Following that, I'm giving the answers to you. Following that, this patient was told you have to take certain tablets for weeks together. What condition must come to your mind? So this is how you must work at the diagnosis, step-by-step learning process. What condition comes? You may be right or wrong, but you have to think of this condition straight away. If this patient is told, look here, there's something wrong, and you're going to take these tablets for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, what condition comes to your mind?
Sir, acute calculus cholecystitis.
Acute calculus cholecystitis. What tablets are prescribed for weeks together? Antibiotics, is it?
Yes, sir.
You only said conservative treatment, Baba. Somebody who's seen with the calculus, symptomatic calculus cholecystitis, will the patient be advised to take tablets for weeks together or undergo surgery? You only said consider treatment. That's why I'm asking you again.
Yes, sir.
Upper abdominal pain, and he was advised to take, and now a mass has appeared. Classical presentation, where a
Yes.
patient has been advised to take some tablets for weeks together. I don't know. Are there any students attending at this trip, Dr. Radhakrishnan?
Sir,
Are there any audience worthwhile asking questions, or they're here to join us?
Sir, any hepatitis?
Hepatitis. We are surgeons, no? Hepatitis goes to physicians. They don't come back to surgeons. They end up with, okay, right. There we have Akash Kini. Yes, please. amoebic abscess goes on for 4 years, young man. You're on the right track. You're on the right track. Uncommon, but you should know as postgraduate. I'll give you a clue. Yes, Akash, come back again. Akash, sorry. Come back again.
Okay, sir. Sir, the patient also...
Hydatid disease. That's right.
Yes, sir, hydatid disease.
Is right, hydatid, where the patient may be asked to take albendazole for weeks together. Understand that?
Yes, sir.
The clues you pick up as you, that's why history is important. As you go by, if the patient has been told, once the patient hospitalized, your business is to ask where investigation is done, what is the advice given. Those things are important. So calculus cholecystitis symptomatic, nobody will say go home and take tablet. Okay, continue. Mass, no, coming to mass.
Okay, sir. So the patient complains of abdominal mass in the right upper quadrant for 3 months, which is insidious in onset and progressive in nature and is associated with the dull aching pain. Sir, this mass is also associated with the history of distension of the abdomen, also associated with the history of loss of appetite, and also associated with the history of loss of weight. Okay, approximately 15 kilograms in a month.
Good, very good. Go on.
Sir, then there is no history of yellowish discoloration, and there is no history of vomiting or bloody vomiting, and there is no history of black stools.
Hang on. When there is no history of yellowish discoloration, there are two other questions should automatically come to you. There must be some order when you discuss. You're thinking of jaundice, am I right?
Yes, sir.
So in the present, what question do you ask if you're suspecting jaundice in the patient, in addition to yellowish discoloration?
Yes, sir. Yellowish discoloration and
yes.
Sir,
Aditya is right. One important, but no history of yellowish discoloration.
History of pruritus.
Takes a backseat, Baba. You're right, but takes a backseat. Pale stools is right, as well as Mukherjee. Along with that, quick. Sir, high-colored urine.
High-colored urine and
clay-colored stools. Many of our patients, I don't know in this part of the country, or why you are coming from Assam. Many of our patients tell us they pass urine which looks more like the your bindi that people put on the forehead, no kumkum we call it. That's how they describe this. They won't say deep colored, or many of them tell me at least that the color is more like the kumkum that they wear on the forehead. Understand that? So automatically when you have said so you should add on. Patient doesn't. I asked about the color urine. Is not dark colored. Is not passing pale stools. Understand? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now, no history of vomiting. Okay. Bloody vomiting, I think the word bloody should be used only in novels, not in cases. Blood stained or hematemesis is a much better word.
Okay, sir.
With respect. Bloody vomiting is a very bad word. Okay. No history of black stool. That means no history of melena.
Melena.
All right. Are black stools and melena synonymous terms?
Sir.
That's why I'm asking.
Yes, sir. Synonymous.
Black stools and melena are synonymous terms or non-synonymous terms?
Synonymous terms.
Oh, really? Somebody in the audience? You give a patient, a healthy person, you give an iron tablet, next day morning he'll pass black stools. Will you call it melena? Anybody in the audience answer this question? Black tarry stools with something more. Don't go to lab, why positive? We're in clinical now, we're in history. Foul smelling, the typical smell, black tarry, semi-solid stool with a particular smell, that is melena. Understand that? All black color stools are not melena. You give patient the iron tablet, next day you may pass black stools. Right. So consistency is important.
Okay, sir.
Now, all these things, which you think is the most important symptom that your negative point you mentioned, because this I've been stressing this point again and again, relevant negative points. I think your screen is becoming okay, now it's fine. Right. You have mentioned so many points here. Nausea, fever, dyspnea, chest pain, trauma. What kind of trauma produces upper abdominal pain and mass?
Sir?
What kind of trauma produces, see, your symptoms or questions should be related to the patient you have. Somebody has upper abdominal pain for 4 years and a mass for 3 months. Why is history of trauma important? There's no need. Understand that? There's no need. You can write, but no need to mention it. Understand? No history of wide excision of modes. That is, means you already premeditated the diagnosis. Don't write this.
Okay, sir.
Wide excision of modes, you better write no previous surgery. The moment you say wide excision of modes, straight away that means you're thinking of melanoma. We say that means premeditated. Or worse still, the examiner thinks you know the diagnosis. That's the worst thing that can happen to an exam going student. Understand? You be very, you say no, it's your previous surgery and full stop, nothing more. Never write these things. Wide excision modes means straight away you have gone to diagnose second is in the liver, probably from a suspected melanoma. That means you are either know the diagnosis or you've got a one-track mind. Don't do that. Back to the question again of all these negative points, which is important here.
Sir, altered bowel habits.
Yes, please. I would say altered bowel habits and bleeding per rectum are two very pertinent points. Rest of them are less important. And trauma, not to be mentioned, why does never write specific surgery unless the patient has notes and he says this operation was done. Understand that?
Yes, sir.
Write down. Otherwise, examiners think you know the case and therefore you're doomed. They start questioning you unnecessarily because they think you come with a premeditated, pre-planned idea. It's the worst thing for a student. Okay, go on.
Okay, sir.
Continue, please.
Okay, sir. Then next past history. There is no history suggestive of hepatitis.
What history will give you hepatitis? What, sir, what kind of hepatitis you're interested in? A, B,
sir,
C, H,
hepatitis B, C.
How many patients will come and say, I got a history of hepatitis? Okay, diabetes mellitus secondary. No history of any major, no history of surgery. Don't, according to me, major minor surgeries are things which is not with any, nothing called minor surgery. I said this often. As far as the patient is concerned, any surgery is major. Okay, go on.
Okay, sir.
Personal history.
The personal history, the patient is a chronic smoker for past 15 years. He smokes at least 5 cigarettes per day. He is not an alcoholic and he takes mixed diet.
Okay, go on.
And regarding family history, her family consists of his wife and 2 children, and there is no history of similar illness in the family, and there is no history of cancer-related deaths in the family.
Why is this question?
Sir,
last one. No cancer-related deaths in the family. Why is this question?
Sir, suppose this may be the mass in the right hypochondrium is mostly due to the maybe metastasis in the or primary HCC. If it is metastatic liver tumor.
What primary cancer interested in Baba?
Yes, primary cancer, colonic carcinoma.
Colonic cancer. Okay, right. All right. Go on. Continue.
Then in the summary of the history.
Yeah, okay. Accepted. Since time accepted. Go on.
Okay, sir. This is a general physical examination. The patient is conscious, cooperative, oriented to time, place, person, and is thin built. The nutrition is poor, and BMI is 19.2. B is pallor, and there is no icterus, no clubbing, but bilateral pedal edema present, but no cyanosis.
Non-pitting.
Sir, pitting, sir.
Non-pitting.
Pitting. Bilateral pitting.
Okay.
And his ECOG score is 2, and his patient is lying supine at position of ease.
Okay.
This is the vitals of the patient. The pulse rate is 84 per minute in right radial artery, regular rhythm, normal volume, and condition of the arterial wall is normal.
It's all accepted. Go on.
Okay, sir. And regarding the systemic examination of the abdomen. In that inspection, the abdomen is grossly distended, and the umbilicus.
Have any clinical photographs?
Yes, sir, I have, sir.
Okay.
I will show it. The umbilicus is displaced downward and inverted, and there is a dilated vessels are seen. There is no scratch marks, no abdominal scars are seen.
Hang on. Why do you look for scratch marks?
Sir?
Why do you look for scratch marks?
Sir, in case of jaundice, sir.
You are the man who said there's no yellowish discoloration. Unfortunately,
yes,
you did not mention in the general physical examination. Only in the history you said.
Yes, sir.
Unless the patient is jaundice, the question of scratching doesn't come into the picture at all. If the patient is jaundice, I would agree. What is the fundamental thing to know about, regarding jaundice? I asked this question earlier, but for those who have not heard the answer, jaundice should always be looked at in natural light. Artificial light sources, quite often you miss mild jaundice. Okay. In the absence of jaundice, there's no reason for it to look for scratch marks. Okay. Now you said dilated veins in the upper abdomen. Are the location important in relation to the known landmarks?
Yes, sir.
Where in relation to what landmarks?
Sir, it is on the. It's away from the umbilicus, sir. Umbilicus and the periphery. So it indicates.
If it's around the umbilicus, what's the inference? If it's in the periphery, what's the inference?
Sir, if it is around the umbilicus, it may be due to the varices, umbilical varices. It may patient get.
What is the underlying condition?
Patient getting the decompensated liver disease.
Okay. Then.
But in this case of periphery, is there patient may have IVC obstructions.
Then how does the blood flow? What is the venous return to the heart like?
It's from below to up, sir.
I know, but how? Trace the pathway of the blood from the lower. IVC is blocked, and the blood has to flow from the lower limb to reach the right side of the heart. Trace the anatomical pathway.
Oh, sir. It's forming the collaterals between the.
Describe the veins, Baba. Obviously collateral, but you must describe the veins and the system involved.
Okay, sir. I don't know, sir.
Don't know. Anybody in the audience? We discussed this only last week. Somebody, yes, Aditya, through the, how does it is intercostal lumbar veins are seen in the front of the abdomen, is it, Aditya? Lumbar veins? Intercostal veins, agreed. What is the lower end? The connection has to start from the lower limb. So you have the superficial epigastric and the circumflex. Those veins connect with the lumbar vein, then the intercostal veins, and then Aditya continue from the intercostal veins. How do they reach the right side of the heart?
Sir,
Aditya, our friend has said he doesn't know. Back to Aditya. Yes? I know superior is the end, Baba, but in the intercostal veins drain into what system? On the right side and what system on the left side? There's a name. Anybody knows the name among the audience? Yes, azygos, right? You are azygos on the right side. Left side? Left side? Where does hemiazygos drain? Azygos drains into superior cava. Hemiazygos?
It is subclaving.
Subclaving. Okay, right. Continue. So this is more in the periphery than in the central part of the abdomen. Continue.
Yes, sir. And his hernial orifices are intact.
Before that, you already know visual peristalsis. I don't like this word at all. You know why? When a patient does not give history of vomiting, there's no need for you to mention visual peristalsis. Understand that?
Okay,
you
sir.
must learn to avoid things which are not. What scars? Yes, no previous surgery has been performed, so scars will not be there. Okay, made the patient stand up and look for hernia. Did you make the patient stand up? Be very honest.
Sir?
Did you make the patient stand up and look for hernia, or made the patient lie down and cough?
Stand up, sir.
Why?
So then only
when the patient coughs, the hernia will appear, no? Why unnecessarily make the patient stand up?
Sir, See, sir, the intra-abdominal pressure will be more increased while standing.
More interested. Can you give a more scientific way of putting things? Anybody in the audience? Why make the patient stand up? Because there's a fundamental rule. When you look for a hernia, patient must be standing and coughing. Why? Somebody in the audience?
Gravitation add.
Occult hernia, you're putting it little too vague. The answer is in obese individuals, small hernia can easily be missed with the patient supine position. Remember this. You're right. Small hernia, especially in obese individuals, can easily be missed with the patient lying down and coughing. Number one. Number two, this is more practical experience. Suppose a long case is kept for the MS exam and you are candidate number 3 or so, and the patient has coughed his lungs out with the previous student, and you ask him to cough, he or she'll make an attempt at coughing, but no real cough. So safest is to say, make the patient stand up. And number two, if you're not made the patient stand up, be honest to say, I have not made the patient stand up. Never try to bluff. Okay? Right. Go on. Sorry. Some other, something else is coming, Premnath.
Sir, sorry.
Your screen shows everything else except your slides.
Then external genetics normal.
No.
Hey, you.
So no lymph
Oh,
nodes.
yeah, fine. Fine,
Premnath.
Yes.
Right. External genitalia normal. Why do you look for external genitalia? What are you looking for?
I am searching for any mass is present, testicular mass.
Mass in what structure, Baba? Penis, testis, cord, you got to be more specific. Some Apurva has written testicular tumor. Okay, right. We'll accept that. No lymph nodes seen. Somehow, inspection, how many nodes are visible? I don't think you should mention this in inspection, unless they're so huge to be visible. I don't think suprachiasmatic fossa is a palpatory finding and not an inspection finding. These are things which are small things but can lead to a little more trouble. And then what happens in the exam is the moment you lose your confidence, your answers start getting a little more hazy, little more hesitant, and then you get in trouble. So avoid these things. Unless they're huge, supraclavicular nodes are not visible. Okay, go on.
Okay, sir. Then palpation. The mass is non-tender and there is no local rise of temperature. The mass is 20 into 12 centimeter, which is hard in consistency and nodular.
Hang on, inspection, did you make out any fullness or is a uniform distension whole abdomen? Did you make out any fullness on inspection or was the whole abdomen uniformly distended?
Sir, uniformly distended.
Okay, fine, all right. So palpation you found a mass, right? Now there is a method of describing a mass. Number one, site. Number two, margins. Number three, extent. Number four, surface. Then only the rest of things come out. You have straight away gone on to hard nodular. Where is it present? In which quadrant of the abdomen? That's the site.
Yes, sir.
Where is it present?
This is the right hypochondrium.
And extending
to the epigastrium and the right lumbar
region. Okay. Now, extending 12 centimeters below the right costal margin. That's the first. Understand that. Next is the borders. Can you palpate all the borders?
Sir. Yes, sir.
And palpate the borders. All the borders are palpable.
Superior border not able to.
Exam you take, the basic method of clinical examination does not differ. Please remember. Understand that? Okay, go on.
Yes, sir. Sir, is 20 centimeter, 12 centimeter hard nodular, non-tender, non-pulsatile, intra-abdominal, intraperitoneal mass is palpable in the right hypochondrium, extending to the epigastrium. And
you
right
haven't answered my question, Baba. Can you feel all the borders on palpation?
No, sir. Superior border I am not able to feel, sir.
Why? So you must write that now. Why? Why?
Sir, I am not able to insinuate the fingers between
the... worthwhile writing or not worthwhile writing?
Sir?
These things are, is it necessary to write these points or not necessary?
Yes, sir, I written, sir. Next slide is.
Next slide, is it? Oh, but the order in which you have described is okay because there's so much a gap. Edge is sharp. Okay, what other type of edge you can feel?
Sir, then round.
Rounded. When you say nodular, what's the size? Are they uniformly in the same size, or nodules vary in size?
The variable in size. The largest being 2 into 2 centimeters.
Largest being
2 into 2 centimeters.
It's in the next slide, is it? All these things are details are there in the next slide.
No, sir, not in the slides. Sir.
Largest is how much? How big is it?
2 into 2 centimeters.
2 into 2, right. Okay. Non-pulsatile. Under what circumstance you get a pulsatile swelling?
Sir, if we...
What clinical condition produces pulsatile swelling?
Sir, if it... hemangioma.
Hemangioma is a pulsatile? Not often. Akash, sorry.
Premnath.
Sometimes very vascular malignancies of pulsatile, not hemangiomas. Go on. Move on.
Okay, sir. So then the mass descends below the right costal margin.
Okay.
Then the fingers cannot be insulated between the mass and the costal margin.
Good.
And the swelling moves with the respiration.
In what direction, Baba?
Sir?
In what direction? Moves
Sir,
downwards to respiration. Every point must be clear. And straight away you're gone to supraclavicular. Bapre. You're finished the abdomen, is it?
Yes, sir.
Really? You mentioned one mass occupying. You are the person who said there's uniform distension in the whole abdomen. You have described a mass that is present in the hypochondrium, going on to the lumbar and the epigastric region. And why is the rest of the abdomen distended? What are the clinical findings are there for inspection, palpation, percussion, auscultation?
Yes, sir. It's there, sir. Percussion auscultation is there.
Then how can you go to supraclavicular nodes now? Unless you finish the abdomen, please jump across. You are confused examiners. You will talk about the abdomen before you move out of the abdomen. Understand that? Okay. Tell me your findings. Then we'll come back to supraclavicular later. Next slide, maybe. Tell me the.
Sir, percussion.
No, we are not finished palpation. You cannot jump to percussion now.
Okay, sir. Sir, there is no testicular mass is palpable.
My dear boy, we are inside the abdomen. Don't jump to the testis now. Anybody in the audience who answers this question? His palpation is incomplete. I can't give any other clue. His palpation is incomplete.
Liver and
Beg your pardon? This straightforward question, Baba. There's no catch in this. Absolutely no catch. You have found a mass in the abdomen. What else do you look for on palpation? I'm putting answers into your mouth. Specifically, you know that all of us know you're talking about liver. Am I right? Yes, sir.
Mobility. Mobility.
No, Baba. You're talking about liver. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, somebody has written Meghana or some no other specialist spleen. Correct. You must say there's no other palpable mass in the abdomen with specific reference to the spleen. Understand that? Special. Because once you have a liver enlargement, your business to search for a spleen. How do you palpate the spleen in the presence of such a lot of distension? Such a lot of distension, how do you search for the spleen?
Yes, sir. I will start from right iliac fossa.
Okay, all right. You tried that, but you find, is that complete? Is there any other method? Is there any other method? I'm sorry, Dr. Patta knows that yes, right place, rocking, hooking, right? Can Apurva describe hooking? It is, sorry, both the girls, I'm very sorry. The word has many connotations. I won't go into details. Hooking is a word that can be used for so many other purposes.
It's a dipping method.
You turn the patient the right lateral up and then ask the patient to take a deep breath just under the costal margin. You may find that the spleen may just come, touch your finger and go. What should be the increase in size spleen before it becomes clinically palpable? What's the minimum increase in size before it becomes clinically palpable? There's one beautiful young girl, Nivedita Reddy. Would you please answer this question? Yeah, 3 times. There's somebody, AQA, somebody 3 times, unless and unless to 3 times. So specifically, you must say no other mass is palpable in the abdomen, and spleen, specifically, spleen is not palpable. Right. Now, percussion.
Okay.
Percussion.
Yes, sir. Sir, the dullness over the swelling and is continuous with the liver dullness.
Very good.
And the liver span.
20.
Sir,
Before you elicit shifting dullness, fluid thrill is present. Okay, right.
yes,
How
sir.
do you elicit shifting dullness?
Shifting dullness present. Out, sir. Sir,
How do you elicit about this sign, shifting dullness, in this case?
Sir, I percuss the central part of the abdomen. Sir, midline of the abdomen towards umbilicus.
It will be
from the umbilicus. So from the umbilicus, I trace
towards the note will be at that stage. What is the percussion note when you percuss over the umbilicus in this patient?
Sir, initially,
while tracing in the umbilicus, as you start percussing, what is the percussion note?
Sir, it is a resonance, sir.
Resonance. Then what is, okay, then?
Then going to tracing towards laterally, it becomes dullness.
Which side did you go? Right side, left side? This
sir, I press the right side, sir.
Baba, you are the man who said there's a swelling extending down 10 cm below the costal margin. You must go towards the left side. There's only reason the question was asked. Right. Okay.
Sir, Nivedita has a question. Nivedita, what is it, sir? You want to ask something?
Yes, you have a question, is it? Yes, please.
You can unmute and ask Nivedita.
Please. You are most welcome, Nivedita. You got a question? Please ask. No question? Okay, fine. Right. Suppose there's a minimal quantity of fluid, which is difficult to measure clinically. It's a test described in books, but not performed on a patient. What is it? Which are the clinical sign? Puddle sign. That's right. Please don't do puddle sign because we'll come to that reason a little later.
What is?
Don't do puddle sign. Okay, right. Today we ultrasound manual pick out even minimal quantity of fluid. Why is the word free fluid used in this particular location? Whenever you do shifting dullness and fluid thrill, the inference is there is no free fluid in the abdomen. Why the word free is used in this context? Why? Because this is a basic clinical surgery I'm asking you. Why the word free is used in this context? We always use the word free fluid. Come on, quick.
Yes, sir, it is not loculated. It's only.
It is free to move within the peritoneal cavity.
Peritoneal cavity.
Understand? It is free to, as right. There is an answer given. Beautifully answer. Sorry. Answer has given a nice answer. So it's free to move within the, because you get locally. What is the commonest condition in this country which produces loculated ascites? What is the commonest condition in this country that produces loculated ascites, where the dullness persists irrespective of the position of the patient? It does not shift. Yes, tuberculosis, absolutely right. Tuberculosis, the abdomen does produce loculated ascites. The word free is important. Okay, right. Then, no thrill, no groovy. Okay, where? Over the liver. Okay, all right. All sounds are present. Fine, continue. Now you go back. Your palpate, no, before that. Before you go to your, I'm interested in 3 things. Palpable supraclavicular node. Which side did you palpate? Which side?
Sir, both the sides are palpable. Left side is commonly palpable.
Commonly, which side? Commonly, which side?
Left side.
Left side. Okay, right. Now, suppose there is a malignancy in the abdomen. How does the left supraclavicular node get enlarged?
Sir, it is because of this retrograde lymphatic, sir.
Retrograde lymphatic. Anybody? Anybody in the audience? Okay, I'll get straight for a question. Man has a cancer stomach, and you find a palpable supraclavicular node on the left side. Trace the pathway. Yogesh, trace the pathway. How does the thoracic get, Baba? You're all taking long jump. Last time, Kerala girl also took a very long jump.
We are the
Diaphragmatic
thoracic
pump,
spine.
first subpleural, Bapre, Aditya are moving away. All the lymph from the abdomen collects into a lake called
Systemical.
Chyli. From there, the thoracic starts and ends at the junction of the left subclavian and the left interjugular. Now, why did you palpate the right side? I'm happy I palpated right side. Give me a valid reason. I'm very happy I palpated right side. Give a valid reason. Give
Sir,
a valid reason. I'm repeating this every time.
Sir,
That's
in
right. That is
some,
left side, Baba. Samir, I want to know right side now.
yes, sir, right side also in 10% of malignancies, sir.
Yes, that's right. What do you call it, but you don't call it thoracic. For unfortunately to make medical students' life miserable, it is called as right lymphatic duct. Don't ask me why. So cisterna chyli can drain through the right lymphatic duct and again just circulate. Now change my question. Patient testicular tumor and he has a palpable supraclavicular node. I went through this path. I think it's the third time I'm going through this path. Trace the pathway. Patient has a testicular tumor and a supraclavicular palpable node. In fact, I mentioned this last time. When a healthy young man comes with a palpable malignant node, first thing you think of is testicular tumor. So trace the pathway. Trace the pathway.
Sir,
Yes,
testicular.
Premnath, go on. No, Premnath is given the first chance.
Yes, sir. Sir, we are the
Answer you skipped
lymph nodes.
one group. Okay, come back. Yes.
The paraiotic lymph nodes.
Right, good.
Then it involves the lymphatic channels of the abdomen.
No, that's the point. Remember, intraperitoneal lymphatics and retroperitoneal lymphatics take two different routes. Testicular tumor, from retroperitoneal, they go into mediastinal nodes. From mediastinal node, they go to supraclavicular. That's important. Understand that? Cisterna chyli does not drain the testes. All the lymphatics they go along the veins. And the right testicular vein, as you rightly said, pre and paraiotic nodes. From there, they spread to mediastinal nodes. From there, they go to supraclavicular. Understand that? So I'm very happy that you palpated both the supraclavicular, which is a commonly mistake. Right? Why you look for spine tenderness? And this portion of spine. Spine starts from C1 and goes to sacrum. Coccyx. Which part of the spine and why?
Sir, maybe sir, I palpated
Beg your pardon?
lumbar spine.
Lumbar spine. Good. Why?
Sir, in case of some renal cell carcinoma.
Okay, right. Oh.
Till metastasis to the bone, bony metastasis, I will have to suspect also.
Right. Now, what are the signs you look for? What are the signs you look for when you palpate the spine? What is it? You look for tenderness. Can you tell me how exactly look for spinal tenderness?
Sir, I will trace
the clinical method of palpating for spinal tenderness.
Yes, sir. Sir, I will trace the spine.
Trace the spine. Spinous process traced. Okay, right. Go on. It's a thin individual. The spinous process is easily palpable. Then what do you do? So
give a pressure on the spinous process.
Wrong. Sorry, sir. Yes. Pedicles. Can you feel the pedicle? AQAWS. Great man. Pedicles are covered by so many muscles, Baba. He's on the right path. You feel the spinal process, but don't apply direct pressure anteriorly. You're supposed to go to the side of the spinous process and try to rotate because the disease involves the body of the vertebra, which is far away from spinous process. What are the structures that are in between the body and the spinous process? Anybody can tell me? You have the
pedicles. Spinal root is there. Spinal nerves will come.
No, I'm not talking now. I'm talking bone. In addition to pedicle, what else we have? Which connects the two to how is the spinous process formed? By the fusion of
pars interarticularis.
Point of stress is the spinous process and the body are not close to each other. A pressure in the spinous process does not get transmitted onto the body. So tenderness in the spine is looked for by applying pressure on the side of spinous process. which is supposed, I'm using the word carefully, supposed to rotate the vertebra, and then there is a tendon. Is the tendon only sign? What are the signs you look for? Two other signs. Anybody? Basic orthopedics. Two other signs. Two other signs. Deformity and limitation of movement. Tendon is number one. Spinal deformity may be flexion or lateral scoliosis, whatever it is. Deformity and limitation of movement, because always the rigidity of the sacrospinalis muscle. So when you examine for spine, in addition to that, you write spinal tenderness, but also mention there is no deformity. Understand? And you're right. And why lumbar vertebra? You're absolutely right. The disease more often than not, both tuberculosis and malignancy, involves the lumbar vertebra, much more common compared to other vertebrae. Why?
So because of bastion plexus in
maximum amount of motion occurs, and therefore minor trauma can lead to small hemorrhages, and these blood hemorrhages may act as a nidus for malignant cells to proliferate. This is a hypothetical answer that will take you across the exam hurdle. I'm not really convinced that this is the reason, but if you're asked, the only answer you can give is this is one of the mobile portions of spine. Therefore, minor injuries are likely to occur, leading to formation of hematoma. Hematoma acts as a nidus for the malignant cells to get deposited and multiply. That's why same thing for tuberculosis. Understand that? So I'm happy I mentioned the fine. Now, testicular mass. What are you looking for? What are the characteristics of testicular mass that tells you it's malignant?
Sir, it's very hard. Consistency, I will see, sir.
Number one, size.
Size.
Should always the size be enlarged to diagnose a malignant tumor. Can you have a malignant tumor in the testis with the testis being normal in size? Yes or no? Yes or no?
What, sir?
Can a person with a normal size testis harbor a malignant tumor within the testis? Should the testis always be enlarged to diagnose malignancy?
It need not to be enlarged, sir.
Tell me the reason. Tell me the reason. House, quick, house.
Because of the coverings.
Carcinoma, the testis may not produce a palpable swelling. The testis can be within normal limits and harbor a choriocarcinoma. Your teratomas and seminomas invariably produce enlargement. Number one. Number two.
Sir. Sir, I'm not hearing.
I think there's some Wi-Fi issue there. The Ballal said he'll come back. Just wait. He'll be back. We'll wait for sir to come back. Just a few more minutes. Premnath?
Okay, sir.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir, hearing.
Okay, right. I am back to my laptop. This on mobile is okay, fine. Right. Continue, Premnath. Question is,
Okay, sir.
is the sign to diagnose malignancy and palpating the testis? We agreed that there may be an increase in size, surface may be irregular, consistency may be firm, hard, or variable, but the sign of a malignancy is house, please, house. Am I audible to the house?
Yes,
Am I
sir.
audible to the
Yes,
house?
sir. Yes, sir. We
Okay.
can hear you. We can't see you though.
Okay, fine. Now, answer
Audible, sir. Yes.
WAS, etc. Nivedita, so many names are there. What is the sign of malignancy?
Sensation, loss of sensation.
Loss of senses.
And describe how do you elicit testicular sensation and why is it lost? 2 questions. What is the clinical correct method of eliciting testicular sensation? Quick, basic MBBS.
Sir, pull the testis, sir.
Pull the testis. Bapre, it will come in your hand, Baba. I get worried. I get worried when people pull the testis. Anybody has answer? Pressure upon the testis produces a sickening sensation in the just above the umbilicus in the abdomen because the nerve supply come from T10 level. Understand? Those who have played cricket amongst the men would surely know what I'm talking about. And that is the key word there is to use the word sickening sensation felt around just above the umbilicus is a positive testicular sensation. Why is it lost in malignancy? Why is it lost in malignancy?
Due to infiltrations of the nerves.
No, that's right. Very good. So therefore, there is a stage in early malignancy where it may not be present, may always present. When present, it confirms it's malignant. Okay, Premnath, continue.
Okay, sir.
Please continue. I can't see your slides, but it doesn't matter. You talk to me. Tell me. Right. Clinical examination is over. Therefore, what's your diagnosis? What's your
Sir, my
diagnosis? Beg your pardon?
sir, summary, sir.
I want your diagnosis.
Sir, sir, my professional diagnosis is hepatomegaly, probably due to malignant secondaries in liver with
So
ascites.
number 1, you said is liver. Number 2,
Yes, sir.
you said
Malignancy, sir. Hello?
Premnath, where is the slide? We can't see the slides.
Sir, I already shared it.
Oh.
Yes, miss.
you say it's liver. You might have shared, but I want to know the reasons. Okay.
Sir, sir, first one is site, sir. Site of the mass.
What
And,
clinical finding to say it's liver, Baba?
sir, not able to instinate the finger between the costal margin.
Right, hypochondrium. You cannot feel the upper border. It moves
Yes,
well with inspiration. On percussion, this contains a liver dullness and the liver enlarged. Understand? Now, why
Yes,
is it malignant?
Sir, because of this consistency, history-wise, sir, from history-wise, the patient having the loss of weight, loss of appetite.
Please remember, when physical signs are present, they are much more important than the history. I'm not saying history is not important. You have to say the multiple nodules which are hard in consistency, that's a malignant. Why secondaries?
Sir, because it's multiple nodular.
You are telling me this man is the secondary liver is going on for 4 years. Where could the primary be? Where could the primary be? Going on.
Primary, most probably is primary maybe gallbladder, sir.
Where?
Gallbladder.
Gallbladder. What clinical evidence you have to say that the primary is in the gallbladder?
Sir, history-wise, I have findings, sir.
Clinically, I said clinical evidence on examination. A gallbladder which becomes malignant and produces multiple secondaries in the liver. Do you think the gallbladder will be?
Gallbladder is not.
Will be palpable or not? You think you can have a totally silent gallbladder producing multiple secondaries? Again, the problem is you have to cope in 4 years history and you have to explain ascites and explain a mass that has been there for 4 months. A carcinoma gallbladder going on for 4 months will definitely be palpable as a separate mass. Understand that? What is the complex malignancy that produces ascites along with?
Sir, mainly the transudate
No, male don't.
peritoneal metastasis.
Peritoneum?
Peritoneal become metastasis because of the peritoneal mets.
My dear boy, you have been in the hospital for so many years together now. What is the commonest malignancy you find in this country where patient has ascites and multiple secondaries in the liver? What's the first thing that comes to you?
So colorectal malignancies.
Huh?
Colorectal malignancies.
That's what I am asking. This is what you get by reading Western books. In this country, carcinoma stomach is much more common than colorectum. There's a problem. You people read only Western articles and come out with these funny answers. Stomach cancers are much, much more common compared to colorectal cancers in this country. So first thing you said, loss of appetite, loss of weight, and then but carcinoma stomach going on for 4 years, is it likely, unlikely?
Unlikely.
Why not think of?
Sir? Sir, I'm not hearing you.
I think of his primary carcinoma.
Sir, voice is breaking.
Pre-existing. Anybody in the house? Okay, now can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Just one.
Voice is breaking, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We can.
Yes, sir. We can hear you.
Right. Okay. Okay. Now, my question is, you fit in all the findings. There's a history of 4 years of
Sorry, sir. Voice is breaking for me.
and the patient has episodes of severe pain, and there's a free fluid in the, and you have 1 minute. I'll try. There's some problem with the net here. Just give me 1 minute. Now,
Okay.
I know there's some problem with the net problem is here. Just give me 1 minute. Are you able to hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now the house. Can anybody answer this question? Yes. Yes. What condition do you think of? It explains free fluid, dilated veins, and I have a mass now. I am saying it's primary hepatocellular carcinoma superimposed on a pre-existing. Answer, please. Answer. Cirrhosis liver. The first thing that comes to my mind here. In the absence of jaundice, in the absence of a separate palpable mass in the area of the gallbladder, if you say carcinoma gallbladder, the only impression I have is that you have seen the ultrasound. I'm very honest with you. You go by the logic of the situation, the first thing that comes to your mind is primary carcinoma pre-existing cirrhosis. Because how often does how do you explain free fluid? A carcinoma stomach or carcinoma colorectum, more often or stage. What could be its primary, which can read totally and produce multiple seconds of liver ascites? I know I'm West Baba. I'm asked the primary B, which remains totally asymptomatic, and patient presents with this picture of free fluid and secondaries. Where could the primary be? Your colorectum is too wide an answer. I want you to, audience, right colon malignancies are notorious to remain asymptomatic, and they can present present
It's anemia.
second is the liver. One. Number two. Suppose the patient did not have ascites, what are the conditions? Endocrine tumors can remain very silent and produce secondary liver. Understand that? But to my mind, the clinical picture is one of clinical liver is the first diet that must come to your mind. Tell me that probably your picture and change your diet.
Sir, sorry, sir. I'm not able to hear you, sir. Voice is breaking.
Can you hear? Yeah.
It's
One
breaking,
minute.
sir.
Oh, I know that.
So sorry about that. There's some problem with Dr. Ballal's connection today. We'll wait for him to come back again.
No, now, can you hear me now?
Yes,
Am
sir,
I
we can.
audible? Am I
Yes, sir.
audible? All right,
Yes, sir.
please
Yes.
continue. Now, what about the audience? What do the students think with the clinical picture you have? The most likely diagnosis, I believe, is how often does cirrhosis produce malignancy? Any idea? Common, uncommon, rare, very rare? I'm not asking percentages. Premnath, is cirrhosis known to produce primary carcinoma? Can carcinoma develop in a previous cirrhotic liver? Answer is yes or no. Premnath, can you hear me?
Premnath, I think he has to log in again, sir. He is.
Okay, all right. Yeah.
Anybody else? Dr. Vijay Kumar Agarwal, you want to answer?
Yeah. Apurva has given an answer. Yes, absolutely right. Now, why does malignancy develop in a cirrhotic liver? Explain, please, Apurva. By the time, yes, Apurva, Abdul, whoever it is.
Yeah. Premnath has come back, sir.
Premnath. Yes, Premnath, tell me the pathway by which a cirrhotic liver leads to malignancy. Quick. Pathway of a cirrhotic liver to go into carcinoma. Pathway. Quick. Premnath.
Please unmute Premnath and then. But somebody can answer meantime.
The liver, which is totally absent in other malignancies. Ampi. So maybe just urgent, I think. Hello. I think Premnath.
Sir, I'm here only, sir.
Right. Come on, quick.
Yes, sir.
Yes, the pathway. Scarring does not produce malignancy, Yogesh. Answer is liver is one organ where destruction is accompanied by regeneration. Understand that? That's why a mother is able to donate one part of the liver to the child and that part will regrow again. And that's why a split liver transplant is being taken place today because of part of the liver regenerates again. So when you have a process of destruction and regeneration going on simultaneously, risk of malignancy is very high. And also the next point is when malignancy supersedes in a pre-existing cirrhosis, it can be quite often multicentric. So my clinical diagnosis in this case is a primary carcinoma arising from a previous cirrhotic liver. Okay, now tell me the ultrasound findings. Premnath, go on with the investigations. Go on with the investigations.
Sir, investigation I didn't provide, sir.
Because at this stage, it becomes an MBBS clinic, Baba. Anything beyond that is postgraduate. At this stage, if you stop, it becomes an MBBS clinic. Understand that? But one
Oh.
thing,
You
no.
can give your protocol if you not put up in the slides still.
You know the ultrasound findings? Premnath, if you know the ultrasound, tell me. What does the ultrasound show you?
Sir, ultrasound shows, sir, multiple nodules in the
Okay.
liver. Hepatomegaly is there.
Is the gallbladder malignant?
Gallbladder wall is thickened, it came, sir.
Thickened wall means nothing at all. Absolutely nothing. Okay. Now, how do you proceed now? Okay. This is ultrasound. So, so we come back. Probably this is cirrhotic liver with multiple primaries. Okay. I'll give that. That's a clinical diagnosis. That's ultrasound finding. Now proceed. That gallbladder is not the seat of malignancy.
First I will, sir, confirm the diagnosis, sir.
How?
By doing a basic university ultrasound, by doing CECT, triple phase CECT, I will do.
Straight
triple
away.
Phase.
Okay, all right. Why? What is it now? Suppose you do a CCT and you are thinking of hepatocellular carcinoma. What is the finding that tells you it's malignant? What is the finding?
The finding, sir, yearly arterial enhancement will be there.
What is triphasic appearance in a SCC when you do a CECT? It's called as a triphasic appearance. What are the three phases?
So three phases: yearly arterial phase, this hepatic arterial phase, then portal venous phase, then delayed hepatic venous phase.
That's right. The washout is the most important stage in that. Right. Okay. It shows that probably it's primary malignancy. How do you proceed? How do you proceed now?
Sir, then I will stage the disease.
This is the multiple primary tumors occupying both the lobes.
Yes, sir.
Then?
Sir, then I will do the investigation for the routine surgeries.
What operation are you planning, young man?
Not planned, sir, but I will go for the staging system, sir.
Okay.
Go to the staging protocols. Barcelona Liver Clinic.
Okay.
Staging protocol.
Okay. Basically, your treatment is curative or palliative? Basically.
Basically here palliative, sir.
Palliative. Okay. What palliative treatment can be given to these patients? Will you confirm by liver biopsy or you don't think a liver biopsy?
I will liver biopsy is needed, sir.
What about ascitic fluid? Can you put a needle and take out the fluid and look for malignant cells?
Yes, sir.
Is it common for primary carcinoma to produce massive ascites? Common, uncommon, rare, very rare?
Sir, uncommon.
Uncommon. So therefore, you may see only a transit. Understand that?
Yes.
Right. And before that, of course, you got to do LFTs. You can't straight away put a needle into somebody's liver without doing LFTs, especially prothrombin time, INR, all those things have to be done. You can't jump into liver biopsy. Okay? Right.
Okay, sir.
You have done that. Prothrombin time is normal, is not jaundice. There is some abnormality, but INR is normal. You put a needle and you get a reported hepatocellular carcinoma. How do you proceed now?
Sir, after that, I will check with the report, sir. Biopsy report.
Biopsy report is primary hepatocellular carcinoma.
Okay, sir. Then I will stage the patient, sir. According to the stagings, I will stage the patient.
This patient, what will you do?
Sir, I send for the palliative care, sir.
What palliative care? Send it to somebody. That's not the answer you can give in the exam. You have to tell me what are the palliative measures you're going to do.
Sir, palliative. Sir, I can start with the sorafenib tablet, and sir, for the ascites and all, I will do the therapeutic paracentesis.
It will fill up again. Okay. Sorafenib. Any idea about the cost involved? Any idea about the cost involved? Huh?
No.
See, those are yes. No, okay. Now let us look at the ideal treatment. In the ideal circumstances, these patients with multiple lesions in the liver, pre-cirrhosis, what is the ideal treatment? Purely from a theory point of view, may not be practical as far as we are concerned. But what's the one treatment that you can afford to give, which probably is the best, but may not be practical in most circumstances? What is it? Ah,
Sir, chemotherapy.
chemotherapy is ideal, is it? Most chemotherapy drugs are detoxified in the liver, and you must be very careful when you give chemotherapy.
Yes, sir.
And question is, what is the role of hepatic transplantation in primary carcinoma liver? What is the role of hepatic transplantation in primary carcinoma liver?
Sir, it's depends upon the future
This-
liver remnants. Sir.
Hey, hepatic transplantation advantage, you're taken out
Oh,
the
sorry,
entire
sir.
liver because this is a
Oh,
diseased
sir.
liver. This man has cirrhosis. So you're not
Oh,
bothered.
sir.
We are not bothered about the hepatic remnant at all. That's the greatest advantage of liver transplant. You take out the diseased liver along with the malignancy and replace with
Sorry,
the
sir,
healthy
sorry.
normal liver. So what is the indication? Under what circumstances will you think of hepatic transplantation in malignancies of the liver, primary malignancy?
So I will see for the according to the criteria of Millen's criteria.
What are they?
Sir, is a single lesion less than 5 centimeter.
Good.
Percent, and if it
If
is
they're
less
less
than
than 5 centimeters, why do you want to take out the whole liver? Why not you take out only the disease portion? Okay, and that leads me next question before you go to transplant. What should be the functioning percentage for a patient to survive after a hepatectomy involving the disease lobes or segments? In a normal individual and a cirrhotic individual, what should be the functional reserve of the liver at the end of your operation to keep the patient alive and kicking?
Sir, in normal patients, at least 20% of the liver needed.
25, okay, right.
25%. And
Then
in the cirrhotic patients, 40% is needed. Around
reverse
40%.
40% in normal and 25% in 40% cirrhotics. You are right, correct. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, right. But I'm talking whole liver. Take out the liver and put somebody else's liver.
Yes, sir.
Why not do that?
Sir,
Number one, availability. Number two, there are much better indications because when you do a transplantation, what is the risk involved?
sir,
Transplanted liver can again become malignant. Understand that?
Yes, sir.
So it is one of the lower indications. The need for liver is much more felt in patients who have other diseases which are eminently curable. That's what I'm trying to tell you. It's not the topmost indication for liver transplant. We always look at other conditions where patients can have a much better quality of life following a liver transplant. Okay, right. Now, suppose there are nodules in the liver and patient is not fit enough to undergo surgery, what other palliative measures are available? Invasive procedures.
Yes, sir. Sir, you can go for a transarterial chemoembolization.
Good, very good. What is it called?
It's called
How do you
FAIS.
make sure? How do you make sure that the drug remains in the malignant cells for a longer period of time, and also confirm it's that they're injected into the proper area of the liver? What does TACE stand for? TAC. JC, sorry.
Transarterial chemoembolization. Under the
You always mix it up with lipid so that it remains in the cell for a longer time. Good one. Other than that.
Sir, other than that, I can inject a percutaneous ethanol injection.
No. Okay, all right. Then you can use radio
frequency ablation.
Right. Cryosurgery, there's so many options available, but they're all palliative. Okay. If you're using chemotherapy, which are the drugs you use?
Sir, I can go for gemcitabine with the cisplatin groups.
Okay. All right. And then you already said that's often. How do these patients die? What's the cause of death in primary carcinoma liver? Every patient, you should know the natural history. What happens if I don't treat this patient? There's a question you should ask yourself at all times. How do patients with primary carcinoma liver, it's a fatal disease, agreed, no?
Yes, sir.
How do patients die? What is the cause of death in a primary carcinoma liver? Quick. House can come with the answer.
Back with So not able to detoxify the metabolites.
That means the whole liver should get destroyed before the patient dies. That happens in a very small percent of patients. That happens in a very small percent of patients. Okay, next question. How do they develop jaundice? How does primary carcinoma liver produce jaundice? What's the cause of jaundice in primary HCC? House is not answering. Kader, yes.
Sir.
Yes, hilum involvement is the correct answer. Lymph nodes block the hilum, and these lymph nodes can produce blocking of the bile duct, and then jaundice will become worse and kill the patient. Sudden death occurs sometimes in patients with primary carcinoma. Uncommon, but described. In a matter of minutes, they just collapse and die. Explain. We are planning for surgery for this patient, but there is some delay, and suddenly within a matter of minutes, the patient collapses in front of you and dies off. Anybody has answer? Hemorrhage, that's right. Hemorrhage is a very good answer, excellent answer by the gentleman. I missed your name, Baba, but excellent answer. Necrosis and hemorrhage is very common in HCC, and the hemorrhage can be sometimes exsanguinating. Otherwise, they have deep jaundice. It is not as if every cell in the liver is replaced by malignancy, and liver cell failure occurs secondary to bile duct obstruction, and then the death occurs. Or the cirrhosis proceeds, and then they go in for liver failure because the functioning liver segment is so much reduced that they die of liver cell failure. Understand? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Right. Well, any pre-malignant condition you're aware of which can lead to HCC? One is cirrhosis, already talked about it. Anything else? Anything else?
Sorry, hepatic adenoma.
Adenoma. Okay, right. Good. Common in women who take
oral contraceptive.
Good. Very good. Anything else which is much, much more common than oral contraceptives? You're the gentleman who raised this point earlier.
Sir,
any type of hepatitis known to lead to malignancy. Hepatitis
B and C.
C, the primary C, much more common than B. That's right. Okay. Thank you. Only thing is, don't come out with primary gallbladder unless you have evidence. Understand that? Best thing is say this is a malignant liver, probably primary, maybe secondary. Which is more common, secondary or primary?
Secondary, sir.
This is what the books tell you, but today more and more people are finding that the primary carcinoma is equally important. Now, the last question of the day, if it is secondary deposit, which are the primary sites wherein surgery for secondary metastasis in the liver is commonly performed?
Colorectal.
Which are the primary
Colorectal
sites?
and
Colorectal
and neuroendocrine tumors, sir.
Very good, excellent answer. These are two areas because when secondary occur for the following carcinoma, stomach, etc., chances are that's a disseminated disease. Whereas portal vein spread occurs from a colorectal carcinoma or a neuroendocrine, where the patient may be fit enough to undergo a resection depending upon the size, etc. Understand that? Okay, Premnath, you're done well. God bless you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Dr. Patta, I'm very sorry. Some problem with the our net. Okay, Dr. Patta is listening.
Thank you so much, sir.
No problem.
Without really informing you, I pulled into this and then.
No problem.
Anyhow,
these boys must bring the industry. Otherwise, it becomes MBBS clinics and it becomes hypothetical.
I'll make sure that they will from now on. Thank you so much, sir.
They have the ultrasound or CT scan report, then we can interpret them much better and discussion will be much more scientific. That's the only reason. Okay.
I agree, sir. Sure, sir. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Good night. Good night.